Welcome back to another episode of Suno Designs. I am Chad Morris, aka Simo, and to start this one off, I used a dried spiral cut juniper tree and began by clearing any extra dirt and debris. Since I plan to coat the branches in a sealant to make them more durable, I figured it was a good opportunity to experiment with another idea I had to see how it would look with rainbow colored UV resin dripping from the buds. Hopefully you can see it wasn't a bad idea and definitely something I'll revisit, but after I coated all the branches, I moved on to adding some extra texture by spraying it with orange peel textured wall paint. Several days later, I added some white chalk paint and a touch more texture with the sandstone paint. After that dried, I used matte sunrise and tried to make it look like a streak of color spreading all the way across. Almost there. We are almost there. Next, I added a single screw hanging mount in the back of the base, and unfortunately I somehow lost the footage of how I made it, but it was from an old trophy that I cut it off of and painted it white and fused a double-sided garage-style hanging rod to. This was about 2 years ago, and at the time I considered it finished, but I gradually started to really dislike that garage-style hanger and eventually came up with a new way to mount it that I thought would look much more unique and professional. I started by using my Dremel to cut away the old hanger, and since I used some heavy-duty materials, it took a lot of careful blade work to slowly cut it off with minimal damage to the base. Once I got it close enough, I just used a little elbow grease and it pulled right off. Next, I moved on to using this sculptwood putty. It's a 2-part moldable epoxy putty that dries very hard and lightweight. I use it for a ton of projects. It takes about 2 minutes of thoroughly blending each part until you get a solid light brown color all throughout. And then I just started doing my best to try and smooth it over the top and blend it to look like it actually belongs. I wasn't sure I was going to pull it off, but after about 20 minutes of playing around with it and trusting my instincts, it came out looking good enough for me. I let it cure overnight and started drilling the hole for the new acrylic rod, and I did a smaller bit to start it so that I wouldn't just rip right into it at once. But when I used the bigger drill bit, I ended up finding out the hard way that there was a thick metal rod holding the base sections together. Woo! Man, that thing is troublesome. After investigating, I realized I wasn't going to be able to remove the rod from the middle, and thought my new idea just wasn't going to work anymore since it was right in the way. But eventually figured if I filled the whole cavity with a strong glue, it would still work out. So I went ahead and put my acrylic rod as far in as it could go, then wrapped it in tape to protect it as I glued it and painted it. I filled the hole with Loctite construction glue, then made sure the rod was at a 90-degree angle before using some UV super glue to get an immediate hold on it while the Loctite dried overnight. Next, I repainted the base with a gritty white stone paint. I love the texture of it, and it also helps to hide and blend any subtle imperfections. I also used a fine brush to get an extra close finish around the acrylic rod. After a few coats and touch-ups, I let it dry overnight, then sealed it with a few more coats of matte acrylic sealer. Once that dried, it was time to remove the tape, and I was happy to see the base actually came out looking great. Next, I had to drill a hole in the back of the tree for the acrylic rod to mount to, and I did a smaller starter hole first again.
Please, I want to do this.
I used a tapered Dremel bit to get the hole just right so that it was tapered inside, creating a nice snug fit for the acrylic rod. And I also tapered the rod itself with the Dremel and some sandpaper, and it really does have a perfect fit when I finally mounted it together. Now it's time to repaint the tree since it had been 2 years since I originally painted it. And and also went through and fused a lot of the little branches together to make the whole piece much more reinforced. After several coats of protectant sealant, it was finally good to go, so I just added a layer of felt to the back so that it doesn't scratch a wall. And I forgot to show how it mounts to the wall, but it just takes a single screw with the screw head sticking out like just the right distance so that the base slides right onto it and sits snug against the wall. And the tree can just be slid right into position until you feel it get nice and snug. I was really happy with the turnout. What do you think? Hopefully you guys like it too. I really appreciate any honest feedback. If you don't mind leaving a comment. I was going for a bit of a white sand, beachy sunset kind of vibe, but didn't even realize how much it looks like some kind of pink coral. So I guess it just kind of worked out like that. Either way, I just love the minimalist look and really just showcases the natural beauty of the shape and fractal branching pattern. Especially with the new acrylic rod display method, just has a nice, elegant touch to it overall. Alright y'all, I'm on to the next one. Hope you are too. See you next time.